come to visit us, and we did a 2-hour session with them. So walking them around the gardens. Patrick, who's on tech here, sitting next to me, he was getting to do walking meditation around the gardens, and we were doing question and answers with them. Totally beautiful children, lots and lots of questions, and they already had quite a lot of certainly information about Buddhism. I don't think they understood it much, but they certainly knew all the words like dukkha, samsara, meditation, chanting, mantra. They could do all that, but what they actually knew, I couldn't quite work out. But it was lovely, really lovely, just answering their questions, drawing them out, getting them to talk about their experience. Saddhanandi was teaching them meditation and then asking them how they'd experienced it. Yeah, so really fabulous. And it was very interesting doing that, just being with these children and then knowing that I was doing these sessions in the morning with all of you. And one of the questions that they were asking us as teachers was, what do you most enjoy about a Buddhist life, or what do you most enjoy about meditation? And I answered it by saying that I wanted my life to have meaning, and that I didn't realize this, but I needed a reason to get up in the morning. And there were many, many things in life that didn't give me a good enough reason to get out of bed. And gradually, what I've discovered is the reason I get out of bed is because, well, A, I want to contribute, but B, I want to learn something, and I want to learn something about myself, and I want to live a creative life. And I've just been reflecting on this a bit because we've been involved, or I've been involved in listening to this interview with Carol Bowman about children's past life memories. I've been going back into my own memories and thinking, where did I learn about my life, really? Where did I learn about my life? Where have I built up a sense of meaning in my life? And just remembering sort of moments when that happened. I've also just recently had contact with a friend who I was at art school with, and she was, we were on Instagram together, and she was just reminiscing on a very traumatic moment that happened, which I won't go into, which we shared. And she said, "Oh, you were very kind to me. You put me in a bath and we lit lots of candles and we just talked about it." And I'm basically a very close person. Well, actually, her father just killed himself. And this is the news that we'd received. And we were just young girls. We were just like 19, 20 years old with this very intense experience. And it just brought it all back, that sort of moment in my life where we hear, a friend hears that news and I have to sort of come into relationship with it. I was at a concert at the time and I came home and she'd already had the phone call. And then on this Carol Bowman interview, she's drawing out the children, or she's talking about the children suddenly where they realise something about themselves. A sort of piece of reality kind of cuts through their life and they see something, maybe a past life experience or a past trauma. But that's also the same for us, that there's a greater awareness that sometimes kind of cuts into our life and we see something about ourselves. Maybe it starts a whole review process about who we are and what we're doing. And so it's this sort of life where I'm learning more about myself and becoming more creative with the raw material that I am, which is the life that I want to lead. I trained as an art student, trained as an artist, and you're always learning how to use media to create something. And then one day when a very good friend got involved with meditation, they said, think of yourself as you're the raw material, and meditation is you learning how to use the raw material. And what you're going to create is a piece of art, but it's going to be you. So I have engaged with that in my life, like thinking of myself as becoming something, a piece of art, if you like. I'm trying to create something with this raw material. but it takes a long time to really understand what the raw material is. I mean, a lot of it's the same as everyone else's, but we've also got, like I said yesterday, we've also got a lot of tendencies and habits. And they're all slightly different for different people. Yeah, so my own teacher, Sangharakshita, he says in one of his books, what is the spiritual life? What is the spiritual path? What is spiritual progress? And he says, ultimately, it's self-knowledge. Ultimately, it's self-knowledge. And I think we can forget that when we're trying to meditate and do a technique, or we're trying to do something better in our lives. We forget what we're really trying to do is understand ourselves more fully. And that might mean that you engage with meditation a bit differently if what you're trying to do is gain more self-knowledge. So I remember a particular occasion where I began to learn something about myself, and this was the start of quite a big progress. It was the start of progress. I've been meditating and practicing ethics for maybe about 8 years by then. And of course, things had changed, and I'd moved on from where I was at the beginning. But at some point, what I was doing in my spiritual life was getting quite restrictive, and maybe it just all felt too intense or too much. And I suddenly thought one evening, it's just too much. Maybe this is a classic moment where we all think it's too much. And I asked myself, what is too much? And the answer was myself. I was too much. Again, this was a bit of a revelation. It was like that moment, that sort of innocent question, what is too much? I am too much. And I began to look at where I was creating a kind of intensity in my inner world, in my life, which was too much. And what I began to see was that I had very, very strong inner judgments. I mean, probably we all have judgments. I'd be doing something quite simple. I'd be serving tea at a meditation class, and then I'd be thinking, you did that well. Well done, you did that well. Or you didn't do that well, you were very noisy. You didn't do that well. And if I did it well, I try to kind of appropriate that experience and think, I'm a good person, I did that well. And if I didn't think I did it very well, then I try and push it away and think you're a bad person. And all the time, I'm making these judgments about myself. Very categorical. And this became too much. So I suppose the inner struggle going on in myself was between a sense of intoxication with myself and myself at my best, a sense of myself going somewhere and progressing, and also a sense of lack and impoverishment and, that's a different person. And all the time, I'm sweeping up and appropriating my experience and categorizing it in one or the other of those categories. And this whole area of appropriating experience is very strong. I think it's very strong for all of us. It means that we're not actually in our experience and engaging with our experience. We're just grabbing hold of it and then doing something with it. Like we're grabbing hold of it and deciding who we are on the basis of our opinion or our judgment of that moment. Yeah, so appropriating experience isn't learning about ourselves. It isn't learning about experience. It's more like consuming it, appropriating it, being very utilitarian. And this is where it got too much for me. So I think self-knowledge begins or starts to begin when we begin to understand those processes within ourselves. We begin to understand ourselves as a process, and as a process which we ourselves can begin to engage with and understand more. The fact that we know we're a process that can be changed is incredibly liberating. I remember standing on a station in Wales, I think in Newport, I think it was Newport Station, waiting to change trains. And there were loads, it was early in the evening, and there was, I think it was a big rugby crowd who was all around me. I think that there'd been a match playing in the afternoon somewhere. And I remember sitting quietly in the corner and thinking, I felt quite connected to all those people, and I thought, what is the difference between me and them as a Buddhist? What is the difference between me and them? And I thought, I know that on the basis of contact, I have feelings, pleasant and unpleasant feelings. And on the basis of those feelings, I have aversion and craving. And on the basis of that, I then act reactively. And because I know that, I can undo that. And that's the difference. I'm sort of empowered because I understand something about processes that are at play in me. So when I began to see just how strongly craving and aversion functioned within my own experience, grabbing hold of my own experience, then I began to listen to what was going on in between. So, if you've got a very, very strong, active energy, very dynamic energy, you might be very proud of that and very pleased with that, but it can also be very dominant. And there might be something else that wants to come through in that experience, that wants to come through. But we don't give it the chance because we're too busy appropriating that very dynamic, active energy. So, all of this is based on views on ourselves, which I'm not going to go into now. Yeah, so how do we step free of that kind of very polarized black and white way of engaging with our experience and just coming into the middle? When I began to not appropriate my experience and just keep some of the reactions at bay, keeping them at a distance, then I began to experience myself adding up into something. So let's give a very small example. Let's say I'm just simply serving the tea in the Buddhist center that I was attending. And I'm pleased with myself. I'm rather pleased with myself. I'm thinking I'm doing this very, very well, and people are enjoying me the way I'm serving tea, and I'm very full of this. And then I can feel this sort of aspect of myself trying to grab hold of that and think, I'm a good person, or it served my self-view, this is who I am. But if I don't do that, what happens? And what happens is I sit back and there's something much more subtle happening. And what's happening is a sort of satisfaction with the moment. There's a sort of quiet satisfaction which is extremely pleasurable, even blissful, where I began to realize in between all that polarized craving and aversion that I bring to my experience, there is a more subtle, deeper experience of who I am. And that is where the real nourishment is. Whilst we're sort of judging our experience all the time, what we're trying to do is make ourselves add up into something. We're trying to bring about the person we want to be, but that's not going to happen on that level. We've got to go into ourselves and be in between those two things. What is happening in between that? When you don't reject your experience, what happens then? When you don't grab hold of your experience, what happens then? When you don't judge your experience and push it away, maybe there's just a sense of discomfort, but also a sense of compassion. I'm having an experience that I don't enjoy, or I'm having an experience that makes me sad. There's just a moment where you feel compassion for yourself. It's very sober and quiet, but it's aware and it's knowledge about who you are. Or when you're not trying to grab hold of something you're doing well, then there's maybe just a sense of contentment and pleasure in that moment. And as I said, bliss. I did on quite a regular occasion experience moments of bliss within that experience, just without meditating, just walking around in my life. Yeah. So contentment's a very interesting quality. I'm just going to read something from Sangharakshita's book. So Sangharakshita's my teacher, and I'm just going to read something from his book, Living with Kindness. One's contentment, or lack of it, is basically always with oneself. All our attempts to get satisfaction from external objects, all the hankering and scheming and yearning, come from this restlessness, this refusal to accept ourselves and our condition. If we are to become contented, therefore, there will need to be a radical shift of direction in our search for satisfaction. Trying to arrange the world to suit our desires will never produce the stillness and simplicity that characterize true contentment, but only the irritation and disappointment that come from dependence upon external conditions. Contentment can come only from our inner resources, from creating the appropriate conditions within our mind. We are dissatisfied with our experience, but we look in the wrong place for the solution. We look out into the world for the remedy, in the form of desired objects and people, when we really need to be looking inwards, into the hidden treasure of the mind itself. Yeah, so the hidden treasure of the mind itself, self-knowledge, self-learning, which is not when we're trying to appropriate experience. Okay. So what we're going to do this morning in meditation is we're going to do a more receptive style of meditation. We're going to do a bit of body awareness, and then we're going to do awareness of sounds. And I'm going to maybe get you to, if you've got a window, I'm going to get you to open the window slightly, if you've got a window in your room, just so that you hear some of the sounds coming in from the outside. That might be birds, or it might be traffic, or it might be builders. I don't know what the sounds would be. And in a way, it doesn't really matter what the sounds are. And we're just going to focus on sounds for a while. Because what it is, we're going to become like receivers of sound, receivers of information. Quite often what we're trying to do is go out and appropriate. We're going to be labeling and constructing. We're going to go blackbird, robin, or whatever the equivalent birds are. I can't think what you'd have in Victoria, Australia. Very different birds. I know we've got small, over here in Britain, we've got small brown things that make quite a lot of small noises, and they've got very large, colourful things that make very, very big noises. So the sounds will be very different. And then some of you are in the city, and you're going to get traffic and people. And I suspect for some of you, you don't need to open the window for that. Just allow the sounds to come to you without doing too much labelling. And without doing too much spinning off into ideas, okay? And try not to reach into the sound. Try not to reach into experience with, I like that sound, or I don't like that sound. I want that, and I don't want this. Try not to do that. Just let it come to you. And then what we'll do is we'll just turn that kind of receptive, open awareness towards our own actual experience, and just try and be like that. Receive our experience of our inner world, of our experience, as if it's just sounds, yeah, without trying to judge or categorize too much. So that's where we're headed. Okay, so just settle yourself down into your meditation posture. Just closing your eyes if you wish to close your eyes. You can turn off your screen if you prefer to do that, or turn your computer away. And we'll be sitting for about 30 minutes. And just letting all the words just drop away from you. If there's anything worth remembering, you will remember it later. And just being quite present with yourself. You could always imagine yourself like a friend sitting down with you, just seeing who you are, being in relationship to you. Just coming into the physical experience of the body, just sitting here. Just having a sense of yourself and your energy, whether this energy is easy to be with or difficult to be with. Maybe you're feeling very scattered, your mind all over the place, grabbing hold of different things. Or maybe there's a lot of emotion, and focus on a particular incident or tension in your experience, tension in your body or mind. Just taking in who you are right now. Our intention is just to learn something about ourselves this morning or this afternoon. Awareness is as natural and relaxed as our breathing. You can just relax any persona. You can just relax any views that you have about yourself. Just giving yourself a chance to be who you are. You can stabilize your awareness just by relaxing into it. It's not something extra. You can do it quite naturally. Feeling the breathing process. That constant companion in our lives the air moving in and out of our body. We hardly notice it. Just allowing its quiet consistency just to stabilize ourselves in this moment. And now becoming aware, our mind is quite open and we're receiving sounds from around us. Just sitting back and receiving sound into our awareness. Just notice if you're trying to block any sounds or lean in towards any sounds. And try and relax any of that movement. And maybe there are other aspects of your experience now that wants to be heard. Maybe a particular distraction or wandering thought, or a fear about your life. Or a memory, or an anticipation of something. Can you just let these come into your experience and relate to them as if they were just sounds? You're just letting the system, this process of life, tell you who you are. And maybe you can call up a particular thing that you find difficult in your life. Maybe something about yourself or something that's going on around you. And just experiment. What does it feel like to be in contact with that? And just to receive it as information. Just learning something about yourself without judgments. Now just bringing your awareness back onto the breath. That simple familiarity of the breath, of the breathing process. And maybe just reflecting on the nature of awareness, the nature of consciousness, that it can sometimes just be here, following the inner breath, the quiet movements very close to us. And sometimes it's holding in awareness the sounds of something that's happening quite far away. Maybe it's holding a memory, an incident that happened a long time ago. What is the nature of consciousness? What is the nature of mind? So in your own way, just drawing the meditation to a close. When you're ready, just opening your eyes or moving your body. Yes, I'm aware some people probably just need to go now, which is fine. Thank you. Yeah, so we'll just take a minute just to gather ourselves together into connection. And if you want to, then please post question in the chat. So are there any questions at all about either what we've done today or what we did yesterday?
So Annette is asking, how does appropriating a good thing we did differ from the sometimes important rejoicing in oneself as part of self-metta, mudita, karuna?
Okay, thank you. So Anetta, so what's the difference between appropriating experience and just being able to rejoice or appreciate, yeah? Well, I think you will notice a difference, but often when we appropriate our experience, it's because we've got an end in mind. So it's because we're trying to tell ourselves who we are in that moment. A bit like, it's just, well, I can say it's got a different kind of energy to it, like it kind of, like you've already understood what you're going to do with this. This is who you are. And you're kind of fixing it, a bit like kind of putting a decoration onto a Christmas tree. It's a sort of medal or a sort of add-on to who you are. Whereas when you just simply appreciate, it's more like an aesthetic kind of overview of who you are. So you see there's beauty. I mean, you might see other things as well, but that also might be beautiful. But you have a sense of your worth, but without, I don't know, kind of adding it to yourself as a badge. Yeah? That's all I can say. I don't know if that really describes it. I mean, when you can drop down underneath the appropriation activity, the appreciation that you feel then at that level is much richer. Actually, it doesn't deny it at all. I can see you're typing a question. Do you want to unmute and just say something? Would that be easier?
Yes. So what I'm hearing you say is that it's not so much what we tell ourselves or what I tell myself, but it's sort of the effect it has on me that I'll know what it is.
Yes, and it's also it's the way that you're engaging with it, like a parent. Like if a parent rejoices in their child and they just see that their child's done something really well. Like when I was talking to the teachers from the school yesterday when they visited Adistana, they were just saying how much they were enjoying this particular group of children, and you could see a sort of love and appreciation for these children in front of them. But sometimes we don't rejoice at being a child like that. We do more like, oh, he's really good. He's going to be, he's really intelligent. It's like a mother trying to like vicariously sort of get something from them. Yeah, it's a very different energy. You've got something invested, I suppose, in how you're engaging with that thing, whatever it is, whether it's something which you think's helpful or positive or negative. You've got something invested in it. If that helps.
No, that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, or in the chat, or unmute yourself? always very difficult taking question answers after a meditation, isn't it? Maybe you don't have a question, but you have something that you'd be happy to share. Yes, Cindy, you look like somebody who was wanting to speak, so please unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much. I think something about is it unhelpful to sort of get drawn into so that's the kettle, the sort of the lovely feeling of it. I mean, when is it kind of okay? I think I've probably spent a lot of time getting attached to the nice feelings and only wanting to dwell in those. I don't know if you can say something about that.
The nice feelings in terms of meditation, or in terms
of meditation, or even just being with experience.
Yeah, okay, let's think. So it's fine to experience the pleasure of something, yeah, and can you allow that then to sort of have its way with you, like work its way through you, in a way that means you don't sort of hook onto it and invest too much in it or create a story out of it. I think it's experiencing something pleasurable and sort of going there is good. That's fine. But then what do you actually do with it after that? Can you give me an example, Give me an example of something that might happen that you might find pleasurable.
I suppose in meditation, I think for quite a while, I was so enjoying the sort of blissfulness that I was kind of thinking that was the right experience.
Yeah.
And then when it was more difficult things, I was thinking, oh, well, that's wrong. That sort of approach.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's helpful to know. So I think it's great to enjoy meditation. It only happens to me very rarely in the way that you're describing, that very simple way. And really do enjoy it while it's happening. And if then it feeds the idea that this is what I should be doing, then really you're falling into, and the difficult stuff is what you shouldn't be experiencing, then you're falling into worldly winds, which is like your pleasure and pain, or success and failure sort of thing.
Yeah.
And all of it is you, and you're learning about all of, you're trying to learn about yourself in a sort of very rounded way that takes in all of experience. And actually some of our hard experiences can be our greatest teachers at times. I mean, also people get into the opposite, like unless it's really difficult, they're not learning, which is also not true. Yeah. Or unless they're experiencing pain, they're not really working hard. So we get into these funny sort of stories, but it gets very black and white. And all it is just information. And maybe just enjoy the pleasure of just you deepening your experience of yourself. And whether it's pleasure or painful, it doesn't really matter. Sort of looking more at the overall arching sort of operating system rather than the sort of what's actually happening in it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Try it out, see what happens. I mean, this is definitely stuff that you can do off the cushion. You're waiting in the supermarket and there's a woman in, maybe there's somebody at the cashier, and just the way there's an interaction between the two of you, it feels quite connecting and it can be quite nice. Enjoy that and feel yourself sort of filling up with your own human life, and just take that as a sort of satisfaction in your life, a contentment in your life in that moment.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think I've always got a tendency to push too hard, and then you can't see it because there's so much pushing. That makes sense.
And it does, Cindy. Yeah, in a way, I kind of knew you wanted to speak for a few minutes before you spoke, kind of thing, because I think it was even the energy was coming through the screen a bit. And, just like life will. You've got life's going on. Just sit back, but just in a way, it's like a Tai Chi movement or sort of Qigong, or it's like you're moving with more of the flow, and don't interfere quite so much with everything.
Yeah, thank you.
I look forward to hearing more about it, how it goes. Yes. Thank you. Any other questions or anything? I can see a bit of the chat, but only some of it.
Yeah. So, Kedrick has said, Saddhanandi, your guidance was absolutely true and wonderful, but I seem stuck in the process, caught up in the weight of my habitual sense of being myself, going round and round the same old way of being. I certainly need to view this session again later. Thank you, he says.
Okay, great. And I think, tomorrow I might be leading a meditation. This is what I'm thinking at the moment, on the compassion we need to see us when we see ourselves as just caught up and going round and round and round, and we're all doing it. And we need to hold ourselves with that understanding sort of thing. So somehow I want to lead a meditation that does that. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I will try. Any other questions or any thoughts? Yes, Shakijata. You're still muted. Oh yeah, good, we got you.
Thank you. There was something I was very, very anxious about this morning when I sat down. It was very difficult to get out of bed, difficult to face this. And in the sit, when I saw it as my thoughts, that was helpful. What is going on is my thoughts. But I think I do have a tendency to sort of push away negative thoughts. And not, I don't quite know how to meet them. I wonder if you've got any...
Yeah, okay, I'll try. Let me think. Thank you, Shakijata. I mean, anxiety, and there isn't very much pleasure in anxiety, is there? I think. So I think we can get into the idea that if we've got to think something through in order to release us or relieve us from the tension that we're experiencing. And the thoughts aren't that strong in many ways. Often the thoughts are being driven by the mental state that we're trying to get away from. So it becomes a very vicious circle. Yeah? So you're trying to sort of somehow get away from anxiety by having a lot of anxious thoughts, and that just whips up the wind of anxiety even more. I'm just thinking about containment. So one of the things is, when we're dominated by a very strong emotion like anxiety, there is still more of us apart from that. So maybe try and find yourself as a sort of bigger container, like you're more than just anxiety, even if it's a very dominant thing. You can still hear the birds, or you can still enjoy the colour, I don't know, of your bedspread, or you can still enjoy the breakfast that you're eating. So there's a lot more to you than just that mental state. And try and get some sort of perspective from that point of view. But also, the anxiety it will be being driven by our thoughts. And is there a way of you, it's difficult, just coming into a kind of real, authentic relationship with anxiety without so many thoughts.
Ooh,
Hmm.
what's that?
Yeah, what is that, Shakijata? What is that? It's a very difficult, demanding sort of energy, isn't it? And it's got sort of benefits to it. Its benefits is to tell us that we should be frightened, and it's trying to sort of I don't know, separate us from what's really from other kinds of experience. So come into a sort of real relationship with it. God, I'm trying to do this on my feet. Let me just think. Come into a real relationship with it. Okay. Like, does it really matter that you are anxious? Yeah, that's a sort of real relationship. Does it really matter that you're anxious? Because while we believe anxiety, we believe it's happening because there's something we should be frightened of. So we think it's a sort of early warning system, like it's an alarm bell going off telling us there's something dangerous. And that maybe isn't what's going on. What's going on is just simply a mental state's kicked off for various reasons. And is there really a problem with being anxious? Maybe not. And then just see if that diffuses or takes the energy out of it.
So is there really a problem?
Is there really a problem? And is there really a problem, Shakijata?
Well, not at the moment. No, it's what might happen.
So it's just your concerns about what's going to happen in the future. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Might.
And there might be reasons why you need to pay attention, like that there is something going on for you that makes you think, oh, okay, I'm getting information now that needs to be dealt with, but is there any need to be anxious?
Thank you.
Let's see, I'll keep thinking about this. Yeah. Thank you, Shakijata.
Thank you.
So Net is asking, what you say sounds like asking the anxious part if it will sit down and take a break rather than holding up a big sign announcing its presence.
You can put it like that. I used to have a friend that used to get very obsessive about certain mental states, and I used to say to them, I was living with them at the time, and I used to say to them, could we have a curfew on this for the next 24 hours, and we'll just reconnect in at lunchtime tomorrow, and just sort of put it to one side and come back to it, which is a little bit what you're saying, Netta. Thank you. Patrick's tummy is rumbling and he needs his porridge, that's what I think he's saying. Any other questions or any other thoughts you want to share? No. Well, maybe we should just end the session here. Yes, I'll see you all in 24 hours, and do consider going on retreat at some point in your life as a way of just taking a break from who you are, which is often very nice. And yes, I'm just seeing the website going up. The one that we're running at Adistana. It'd be lovely to see you here. And yeah, I'll see you all in 24 hours time. Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Saddhanandi.
Thanks very much.
very much.
Saddhanandi.
Bye.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Bye, Saddhanandi.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Saddhanandi.
Bye-bye,